Welcome back, everyone. You're tuned in with Six Path Weeb, and today we're pushing the limits of imagination once again. The question on the table is bold, thrilling, and full of possibilities. What if Naruko had a Bankai and clones? Part 3. As always, this is a space for fun, creativity, and discussion. The anime footage belongs to its rightful creators and copyright holders. I'm just here to explore the what-ifs that make the anime world so exciting. Now, let's dive straight into it. Unbothered by the shallow mark across his chest, Kenpachi glanced down at it before smiling and focusing on the golden-haired youngster before him. Around Kenpachi and Naruko, the 11th Division members stood in stunned silence. None of them had ever managed to land even a single strike on their captain during sparring sessions, and yet this child had achieved what they considered impossible. Perched atop a nearby wall, a Shinigami observed Naruko with growing interest. From the first moment he had heard whispers about her, she had caught his attention. A namikaze standing right before him seemed like the perfect chance for his ambitions. If Naruko's growth continued at this extraordinary pace, she could become an unmatched ally. All he needed was the right moment to guide her. Down below, Ikaku Madarame, 3rd seat of the 11th Division, watched in quiet astonishment. Not even he had been able to make their captain stumble in combat, yet Naruko had done so. For the squad, it was a remarkable sight. The only other person to ever push Kenpachi this far had been the fiery red-haired woman on their team. Ikaku. A voice called. Speak of the familiar. What's happening here? Kushina asked as she approached. You've improved, little one, Kenpachi announced with a grin. But you'll need more than that to match me. He marched toward Naruko with unstoppable energy. This all started with a challenge last year, Ikaku explained to Kushina without turning his head. A promise was made, and today's match is the result. Kushina's eyes narrowed as she looked at Naruko preparing for Kenpachi's next move. Why are you here, Naruko? She thought with concern. Kenpachi swung his blade downward, but Naruko blocked it with all her strength. At first, the weight of his attack was nearly overwhelming. Then, as if encouraged by the spirit of her Zanpakuto, Naruko felt renewed energy flow through her weapon, giving her the strength to hold her ground. Kenpachi's grin widened. He had not felt this kind of thrill since his bout with a certain red-haired warrior. Naruko was not just another challenger, she was someone who could one day become a true rival. You've got quite a few surprises, Namikaze, Kenpachi said with amusement as Naruko leapt back. His blade slammed into the ground, shaking the arena and knocking others off balance. Naruko, however, landed gracefully and returned to her stance. Not in the mood to chat? Kenpachi teased. Naruko said nothing, her face calm and focused. Kushina silently wished her daughter would speak, if only so she could hear her voice at last. Kenpachi charged, but Naruko darted swiftly around him, her movements multiplying until it looked as though 3 versions of her danced around the captain. Kenpachi swung at one illusion only for it to vanish. Another rushed from above, but he caught her with one hand mid-air. Clever trick, Kenpachi said, raising an eyebrow at her resourcefulness. In my squad, we prefer direct combat. No illusions, no games. Just straightforward skill. He released her and allowed her to step back, standing tall and confident once more. If you want to join this division, you'll need to remember that. His grin returned. Now, get ready, we're not done here. But to his surprise, Naruko calmly sheathed her blade and smiled. I already finished, she replied at last, her voice carrying across the field. Kenpachi blinked. What do you mean? You agreed to my rule, Naruko reminded him. If I can leave a mark, I win. If not, I lose. You gave your word. And that mark on your chest is proof enough. She smiled proudly. Kenpachi chuckled. Fair point, little one. You won the wager. But you're far too entertaining to stop here. With both Uzumaki and Namikaze blood, even at your age, you're remarkable. Welcome to the 11th Division. Before Kenpachi could continue, a blade intercepted his path. Kushina stepped forward, her eyes firm. That's enough, she said firmly. Kushina, Kenpachi greeted with amusement. Perfect timing. What do you think you're doing? She asked sharply. Just testing the newcomer, Kenpachi replied casually. Naruko, confused, tilted her head. Who are you anyway? She asked. Kushina's heart clenched. She had rehearsed this moment for years, wondering what she might say if she ever met her daughter again. Now, with Naruko standing before her, every word escaped her. The emotions she had carried for so long rose in her chest, but nothing she could say felt worthy. Tears welled in Kushina's eyes as she realized her daughter did not recognize her. Still, she could not bring herself to explain, not yet. She resembled Minato in appearance, yet in her demeanor, Naruko carried a curious balance. Minato's calm intelligence blended with her own impatience and spirited eagerness for a challenge. Kushina dabbed a tear from the corner of her eye and gave a small shake of her head. She had no idea what words might escape her lips, but she prayed they would be the right ones. I didn't realize you had a gentle side, Uzumaki, Kenpachi teased. Naruko growled under her breath, assuming the comment was aimed at her. Before she could answer, however, Kushina swiftly struck Kenpachi with a precise kick to the chest and followed with a spinning strike to his face. Landing gracefully in a backflip, she positioned herself protectively in front of Naruko. Naruko frowned, staring at the sway of Kushina's crimson hair as it settled. "Why are you always shielding me?" Naruko demanded, her voice rising with irritation. "I can handle myself. I've been standing on my own all my life." Instead of anger, Naruko was startled to see tears glistening in Kushina's eyes. Kushina dropped her Zanpakuto, fell to her knees, and embraced Naruko tightly. Naruko's eyes widened as she froze in surprise. The warmth of Kushina's arms, the faint fragrance of peaches, and the softness of her touch left her motionless. Kushina held her close, her grip tender yet firm, as if she never wished to let go. Inside Naruko's mindscape, the spirit of her Zanpakuto stood silently, struggling with unspoken emotions. Though strengthened by the Kyuubi's chakra, the spirit still bore Minato's memories and feelings. From time to time, waves of frustration from the Kyuubi stirred within him, but with calm meditation, he suppressed them. Yet he could not deny the thought that one day, those turbulent emotions might surface again. "We let her down, Kushina," he thought mournfully, remembering the memories he had witnessed within Naruko's heart. A lone tear trailed down his cheek. Outside, Naruko gently eased Kushina back so she could look into her face. Something about Kushina stirred a sense of connection within her, strange yet familiar. Kushina smiled softly, her expression radiant with a warmth Naruko had never felt before. "Naruko, you've grown so much." Naruko's eyes narrowed suspiciously. "How do you know my name?" "Because I'm your mother." Naruko's mouth fell open as her spirit groaned inwardly. "That was too sudden, Kushina." Instead of being moved, Naruko tilted her head forward, shoulders shaking with laughter. "Did I miss something?" Kushina wondered, her heart stinging from Naruko's unexpected reaction. "That was a good one," Naruko chuckled lightly, brushing away a tear from her eye. Crossing her arms, she added, "As far as jokes go, that was a clever attempt." Kushina's smile wavered as fresh tears gathered. "This isn't a joke," she whispered, her voice trembling with sincerity. Naruko blinked, tilting her head. "Calm down. It's a sensitive subject, but let's just leave it at that. No need to make it heavier." Nemu, watching nearby, whispered, "We should go." Yachiru nodded, though she remained where she stood, observing intently. "Why won't you believe me?" Kushina pressed, her voice growing more desperate. "Just drop it," Naruko muttered, attempting to turn away. But Kushina grasped her arm tightly. "Please, tell me why." Kushina pleaded, her emotions breaking through. Naruko clenched her fists, her bangs shadowing her eyes. She wanted to shout, to release the storm swirling in her chest, but she held herself back. Finally, her voice came out low and trembling. "Why do you even care?" "Because I'm your mother, and—" "Stop," Naruko shouted, cutting her off. The room fell into tense silence. As she lifted her head, her cobalt eyes flickered, momentarily shifting into a stormy crimson hue, her pupils narrowing like a fox's. "Don't play with my heart like that," Naruko said firmly, her voice edged with pain. "I have no mother." Kushina gasped softly, her tears falling freely, while Naruko turned away, struggling to hold back the weight in her own chest. "Even if I once had a mother. She left me long ago." "That goes for my father too," Naruko said quietly, pulling her arm away from Kushina's grasp. Spirit frowned at her words. "Wherever they are, they must be living happily without me, and that's fine," Naruko continued as she walked toward the exit. At the edge of the crowd, she paused, waiting for people to move aside before stepping out of the barracks. Suki caught sight of her leaving and hurried into the dojo. There, she found Kushina still kneeling. Concern filled Suki's face as she rushed to her side. "Are you all right?" she asked softly. Kushina stood, using Shunpo to leave without replying. Kenpachi gave a small scoff before walking away. "That was troublesome," he muttered. Yachiru tilted her head, then broke into a grin as she skipped after him. "Wait for me, Kenny," she called. Suki watched the others disperse, then decided she should look for Kushina herself. Outside, Naruko was lost in thought and accidentally bumped into someone, falling back onto the ground. She rubbed her side with a sigh before glancing up. A Shinigami knelt down, gathering scattered papers from the ground. "Please watch where you're going," Naruko said as she stood, dusting herself off. The man looked up with a gentle smile. He had brown hair, neat and scholarly, and square glasses that reflected the light. A captain's haori rested over his standard Shinigami attire. Spirit stirred within Naruko, sending a faint warning that made her uneasy. But she pushed the feeling aside. "My apologies, I'm in quite a hurry," the man said politely. "So am I," Naruko replied. "Is something troubling you?" he asked when he noticed her expression. "It's nothing," Naruko answered quickly. "Sometimes it helps to talk, even with someone you don't know," he said kindly. Naruko blinked, a little surprised by his tone. "What's your name?" she asked. "Sosuke Aizen, captain of the 5th Division," he introduced himself with a smile. "Nice to meet you," Naruko said with a small, practiced smile before moving past him. "Would you mind helping me with this?" Aizen asked, gesturing to the papers. Naruko sighed. "I'm busy." In the blink of an eye, Aizen appeared in front of her using Shunpo. "I'd be very grateful for your help," he said warmly. "Don't make me use my captain's authority." Naruko's sweat dropped but finally gave in. "Thank you again for assisting me," Aizen said once they reached his office. Naruko carried a towering stack of papers, nearly taller than she was, and dropped them onto his desk with a heavy breath. "For papers, those were heavier than I expected," she muttered. "I'll be honest with you, Uzumaki-san," Aizen said, folding his hands. "I also wanted a chance to help you." Naruko tilted her head. "I appreciate it, but I don't need help," she replied politely, bowing. "If that's all." "Pardon me, but why were you so stern with that woman earlier?" Aizen asked suddenly. Naruko blinked in surprise. "How?" "I overheard from outside," Aizen explained gently. Naruko hesitated. Something about him still made her cautious. "I went through difficult times before arriving here," she admitted quietly. "What kind of times?" Aizen asked. "I lived on my own. I never knew what happened to my parents. And I told myself it didn't matter," Naruko said, crossing her arms. "I see. That must have been a lonely experience," Aizen said kindly. "Not always," Naruko answered softly. "So you had companionship?" he asked. Naruko blushed slightly. "There was a friend. Someone who was kind to me." Spirit chuckled inside her, recalling the memory. "I can tell by your expression that this friend was very special," Aizen noted. "And no, not like that," Naruko stammered. "She was just wonderful. She had short indigo hair and lavender eyes. She was kind, shy, and always stood by her friends. To me, she was the best." Naruko smiled fondly. "I see," Aizen said, his eyes narrowing ever so slightly though his smile remained. Just then, the door opened. Another captain entered, tall with dark skin and braided hair. His pale lavender eyes peered out from behind a pair of unique glasses. "I hope I'm not interrupting," he said. "Not at all. I was just leaving," Naruko replied, walking toward the door. "Uzumaki-san," Aizen called. Naruko turned, unsettled by the captain's lingering smile. "If you'd like to talk again, my door is always open." Naruko gave a small nod before stepping out. Later, Naruko sat beneath a tall white tree, hugging her knees to her chest. The peaceful grove was filled with gentle breezes, soothing her restless thoughts. That wasn't fair. She went too far. "What do you think, Spirit?" Naruko whispered. In a shimmer of light, her Zanpakuto's spirit appeared before her. His bright hair glowed against the still air, his dark hakama and trench coat untouched by the breeze. "I think you were a little too sharp with your words," Spirit replied calmly. Naruko frowned. "Who asked you, anyway?" she muttered, though not without a trace of humor. Spirit noticed her solemn expression and shifted closer. "What's on your mind?" he asked. Naruko hesitated. "What if she really is my mother? What should I do then?" Spirit looked thoughtful. "That's not an answer I can give. Only you can decide. If she truly is your mother, how would you want to respond?" Naruko stared at her feet, unsure. "I don't know. Could I really forgive her?" Spirit closed his eyes, silent, letting her reflect. Naruko drew in slow, even breaths, calming herself. Clear your mind, Spirit's voice guided gently. Let go of distractions. Breathe. And let peace in. Naruko followed his advice, letting her worries drift away into quiet stillness. Nothing was heard except for the gentle rustling of leaves as the wind moved through the trees. The day blushed, a rosy tint spread across the sky as the blue gave way to soft twilight. On the opposite horizon, the sky deepened into a rich indigo, sprinkled with shimmering stars that added their quiet magic. The animals of the white forest remained hushed, as though they too were admiring the calm and graceful shift from day to night. The moon had not yet risen, but soon it would take its place as the centerpiece of the heavens. Naruko breathed in deeply, catching the pleasant aroma of peaches mingled with the fresh scent of nature. She exhaled softly. You found me, Naruko said as Kushina approached, watching her carefully. It wasn't easy, you're pretty quick, Kushina replied with a gentle smile. Naruko smirked, her eyes still closed. I hear that a lot, Naruko said lightly. So, what do you want? She asked in a quieter tone. I just wanted to talk to you, Kushina answered, stopping a few steps away. She studied Naruko closely, her gaze softening as she took in her appearance. She looks so much like Minato. It's almost uncanny, Kushina thought. Naruko cracked open one eye, her vivid blue gaze meeting Kushina's gray-violet eyes. A picture lasts longer, T-by-O, Naruko teased, and Kushina couldn't help but smile warmly. But she acts just like me too. And that little phrase of hers. She's definitely my child. So, what's on your mind? Naruko asked as she leaned back against a tree. Kushina sat cross-legged in front of her. Why don't you believe me? Kushina asked, deciding to be straightforward rather than avoid the question. Naruko sighed, rubbing the back of her neck. This again. Look. I don't fully trust strangers. It's not personal, it's just how I am. But I am your mother, Kushina said earnestly. Right. Kushina, wasn't it? Naruko replied, as if trying to commit the name to memory. It's just hard to believe that after 9 years of being on my own, I'd suddenly meet my mother here, in this strange place. My mind is still catching up. Then how can I prove it to you? Kushina asked softly. Naruko thought for a moment. What's my name? Naruko Uzumaki Namikaze, Kushina answered instantly. Naruko frowned slightly but continued. What's my favorite food? Kushina hesitated. Ramen? Naruko narrowed her eyes. Lucky guess, Kushina giggled gently, and despite herself, Naruko found the sound comforting. What's my favorite flavor? Kushina thought hard before answering. Miso. Miso ramen? Naruko smirked. Nope, it's salt ramen. Kushina sighed in defeat, though her heart warmed at the thought. She has Minato's taste. Alright, one more, Naruko challenged. If you really are my mom, you'd know my favorite hobby. That's tricky, Kushina admitted. I haven't known you all your life. But I know you're my child. Naruko tilted her head. Well, what was your favorite hobby then? Pulling pranks, Kushina said with a proud grin. No one could outdo me. Naruko chuckled, amused despite herself. I bet I could. The playful air grew more serious as Naruko asked, where was I born? In Kanahagakure. When's my birthday? October 10th. Day or night? Night. Naruko looked down, silent for a moment, then traced her cheek. How did I get these? She asked, pointing to the whisker-like marks on her face. Birthmarks, Kushina replied gently. Naruko paused. She could feel her heart tightening as another question came to mind, one she was almost afraid to ask. Her voice wavered slightly as she said, why did you leave me alone? Kushina's breath caught. Her expression softened with sorrow. I never wanted to, she whispered, fighting tears. Circumstances separated us. But not because I stopped loving you. I wanted you safe. Naruko's eyes glistened. Then, why was I left in the village by myself? She asked, her voice fragile. Kushina reached forward and gently cupped her daughter's cheek. I didn't have a choice. Your father and I made a promise to protect you, no matter what. We wanted you to have a future, Naruko. I'm so sorry. Her tears slipped down, but she smiled warmly. You look so much like him, yet your spirit is just like mine. Naruko hesitated, then wrapped her arms around Kushina. Resting her head on her mother's shoulder, she whispered, I believe you. Kushina's heart swelled. She held Naruko tightly. My sweet girl. That's embarrassing, Naruko muttered with a watery laugh, and Kushina giggled too. Better get used to it, she teased gently. Maybe. Eventually, Naruko replied with a smile. The two laughed softly, wiping their tears. Naruko eagerly asked her mother about her past, and as Kushina shared her stories, Naruko's grin remained bright, so reminiscent of Minato. After all this time, I finally have a mom, Naruko thought joyfully. As the night wore on, Naruko's eyelids grew heavy. She leaned against Kushina's shoulder and drifted into a peaceful sleep. Kushina gazed down at her daughter, brushing a strand of hair from her face, her heart filled with love. She smiled softly as her own eyes began to close. After 9 long years, she finally had her child back in her arms, and she silently promised never to waste another moment together. On top of the Yondaime's head, Jiraiya stood silently, gazing down at the village resting peacefully beneath the moonlight. The night air was crisp and fresh, carrying the scent of the surrounding trees. Not a single villager stirred at this late hour, and that solitude was exactly what Jiraiya had been seeking. He had returned only to ensure that no poor decisions would be made, decisions that could one day weigh on his sense of duty. With a quiet sigh, he closed his eyes and let the calm air surround him. If I had done something sooner, perhaps things would be different, Jiraiya murmured into the night. You think so? A familiar, steady voice spoke. He wasn't surprised when Konoha's Hokage, Tsunade, stepped forward. It had only been an hour since his arrival, and he was more surprised she hadn't found him earlier. I honestly do, he admitted. Tsunade folded her arms, her expression thoughtful as she stepped closer. That's the past, Jiraiya. You should learn to release it. Me? Release the past? Jiraiya chuckled humorlessly. That's a curious lesson, coming from you. Her eyes narrowed slightly, though her tone remained calm. I'm just saying. And I'm just saying, he interrupted gently, that you should follow your own advice. She paused, then looked away with a faint sigh. I know. I'm trying. Silence fell between them for a moment, until Jiraiya finally spoke again. Sometimes, I can't help but feel as though we let Minato and Kushina down. You're different now, Jiraiya, Tsunade said softly, stepping closer. You've become too doubtful of yourself. What happened to the boy who once carried such optimism? Jiraiya didn't answer at once. He simply looked out at the village. Naruko carries that hope now, he said quietly. Tsunade's eyes softened. Exactly. As long as she has people who care about her, she'll continue forward. That's what matters. Her words lingered between them. Jiraiya turned back toward her, sincerity in his gaze. You know I care about you too. I always have. She blinked at him, her expression caught between surprise and understanding. Then don't run from that feeling. He gave a small smile, but stepped back. Not yet. I need to prove myself first. When I return, I'll be ready to stay. Tsunade's lips curved into a bittersweet smile as she shook her head slightly. You always did have a way of leaving things complicated. He only chuckled softly. Will you wait for me? He asked with quiet hope. I don't know, she admitted honestly. But I'll always care. Satisfied, Jiraiya turned back toward the village. Then I'll return with no regrets. With that, he leapt gracefully from the stone monument and disappeared into the night. On his way out of the village, he noticed a young girl practicing alone in the training grounds. It was the Hyuga heiress, Hinata. She was clearly exhausted, but her determination shone in every movement. Jiraiya offered her a whispered, good luck, before continuing on his path. From atop the monument, Tsunade quietly watched him depart, her heart heavy yet hopeful. She brushed away a tear with a small smile. Baka. You already had my answer. As she made her way back to her office, she suddenly heard faint training sounds nearby. Drawn by curiosity, she followed them into the forest until she reached Training Ground 13. There, Hinata stood before a wooden post, practicing tirelessly despite her fatigue. Tsunade leaned against a tree, watching the girl's determined expression. Hinata paused, resting for a moment, and whispered softly, I still miss you, Naruko-chan. It's hard to grow stronger without you here, but I won't give up. A gentle smile crossed Tsunade's face. She has the spirit, she thought to herself. Deciding then and there, Tsunade resolved to invite Hinata to train under her guidance, helping the girl realize her full potential. Unbeknownst to them, however, a mysterious presence lingered in the shadows, silently observing. Hinata looked up at the towering creature, her eyes wide as her body trembled with fear. The beast sensed her presence below and lowered its head, revealing rows of sharp teeth. Hinata tried to move, but her legs felt frozen. She wanted to scream, but no sound came out. The creature lunged, its mouth opening wide. At the very last moment, Hinata's body responded and she rolled away, narrowly escaping. She glanced back just in time to see the beast roar in frustration. It charged at her again, moving faster than she thought possible. Certain she could not escape, Hinata closed her eyes, bracing herself for the worst. Naruko. I wish you were here. She thought desperately. But when she opened her eyes again, she found the beast held at bay by a figure dressed in a flowing white robe, black kosode, hakama, and straw sandals. The warrior's katana pressed against the monster, struggling to keep it away. "Hey, are you all right?" Hinata asked timidly. The man's eyes widened. You can see me?" When Hinata nodded, he said firmly, "Then run." Hesitantly, Hinata tried to obey, but her legs gave out before she reached safety. She turned and saw the warrior push the beast aside, leaping away just in time. Another warrior appeared beside him, both taking their stance. "We should finish this quickly," one said, and the other agreed. Together, they leapt high into the sky, striking the monster with dazzling speed. Hinata could hardly believe her eyes. Their blades flashed as they pressed the creature back, forcing it to retreat into the shadows. But just as relief washed over her, a new figure appeared, this one far more ominous. His sharp eyes and strange mask fragment gave him an unsettling air. He looked directly at Hinata and smiled faintly. "You're coming with me," he declared, raising his hand. Strange energy shot forward, and before Hinata could resist, her vision blurred. She collapsed gently, drifting into unconsciousness. When she awoke, she saw something strange. Her body was still lying on the ground. She looked at her hands and found a silver chain attached to her chest. Panic set in, but before she could speak, another voice rang out. "Hato number 31, Shakaho." A brilliant red orb shot past, forcing the masked stranger to leap aside. Hinata turned toward the voice and gasped. From the shadows emerged a woman with long violet hair tied back, her pale eyes glowing with determination. She wielded twin blades, her stance unwavering. "Stay away from her," the woman commanded. Hinata's heart raced. That voice. It can't be. As the woman stepped forward, her features became clear. Hinata's eyes welled with tears. Mother." "Hinata-chan," the woman said softly, her voice filled with warmth despite the danger around them. The masked figure sneered. "How touching. But I have orders, and she comes with me." Her mother's eyes hardened. "Not while I'm here." A fierce battle erupted. The woman's blades danced like snow in a storm, and the ground around them froze into a sparkling field of ice. She called upon her power, summoning a radiant wolf of snow and light. The creature leapt forward, shielding her daughter as she pressed the attack. Hinata hid behind a tree, watching anxiously. Her mother fought bravely, each strike filled with strength and grace. Even when struck back, she rose again, her will unbroken. Just when the masked warrior seemed too strong, another voice pierced the battlefield. "Stay away from them." A figure landed gracefully before Hinata and her mother, eyes blazing with determination. It was Naruko, her golden hair shining, her aura fierce. "Naruko!" Hinata and her mother exclaimed together. Naruko's cobalt eyes softened when they met Hinata's, but quickly sharpened as she turned back to face their foe. "You'll have to go through me first," Naruko declared boldly. The masked warrior laughed. "You think you can stop me?" But before he could strike, yet another powerful presence appeared, Kushina, her crimson hair flowing behind her as she joined the fray. With a swift motion of her blade, she stood firmly between her loved ones and danger. The enemy scowled, snapping his fingers as strange creatures began to gather around. The air grew heavy, but Hinata, her mother, Naruko, and Kushina stood together, courage shining in their eyes. For the first time, Hinata felt a spark of hope. "We're surrounded by hollows, and you still find time to smile?" Ikaku remarked as he and Yumichika appeared beside them. Kushina rubbed the back of her head with a sheepish grin. "Get those two to a safe spot, we'll handle things here," Ikaku instructed. Kushina and Naruko nodded. Kushina lifted Hikari carefully, while Naruko gently supported Hinata by the waist. Hinata flushed at the contact, and Naruko's cheeks grew warm as well. Together, the two hurried their friends away to safety while Ikaku and Yumichika began handling the hollows with ease. Once Naruko confirmed that no hollows were following them, Kushina knelt beside Hikari and placed her glowing hands over her friend's injuries. A soft green light surrounded them. "This is unexpected," Hikari admitted, and Kushina chuckled. "Tell me about it." "I didn't know you were a Shinigami," Kushina said. "When did you become one?" she asked as Hikari shifted uncomfortably but began to feel relief as the healing settled in. 9 years ago, Hikari replied quietly, a bead of sweat forming on her forehead. You mean, back when? Kushina began, but Hikari quickly nodded, not wanting to go into detail. Kushina let it rest and gave her a supportive smile. I wanted to leave the Shinigami life behind. I hope to find peace here, but it seems this world is filled with challenges too, Hikari said softly. It's been quite the adventure, though, Kushina replied warmly, remembering their shared journeys. Hikari nodded, then turned her gaze toward Naruko and Hinata, who were talking nearby. Naruko's cheerful chatter contrasted with Hinata's shy laughter, and both of them were blushing. They're adorable together, Hikari commented with a smile. Kushina glanced over, watching as Naruko hugged Hinata, causing Hinata's face to glow red with embarrassment. Kushina's lips curved into a gentle smile. I suppose they are. Just then, Ikaku and Yumichika returned. That was refreshing, Ikaku said, stretching his shoulders. Almost wish there had been more. There was something unusual, though, Yumichika added. What do you mean? Hikari asked. One hollow actually spoke. It mentioned a master who wanted a girl brought back, Ikaku explained. Yumichika gestured toward Hinata. We believe it was referring to her. Before more could be said, Hinata suddenly fainted in Naruko's arms. Naruko looked startled. I didn't do anything. I promise, Naruko exclaimed nervously. Hikari smiled reassuringly and asked Naruko to bring Hinata closer. Naruko carefully laid Hinata in front of her. Hikari held her daughter's face gently until Hinata's eyes fluttered open. Good morning, sunshine, Hikari teased softly, the way she had when Hinata was small. Hinata's eyes filled with tears. Mother, she whispered, hugging Hikari tightly. Hikari embraced her in return, stroking her hair. I'm sorry, dear, but I can't stay long, she said gently. Hinata clung to her, sobbing quietly. I love you, mommy, Hinata whispered, her voice breaking. I love you too, Hinata-chan, Hikari replied warmly. She shared a meaningful glance with Kushina, who nodded through misty eyes. A soft light surrounded Hikari, growing brighter until everyone shielded their eyes. When the glow faded, Hinata was crying quietly in Naruko's arms. Naruko held her close, comforting her with gentle words. Yumichika spoke up. We'll return to Soul Society. Kushina, we'll let them know you still have matters to finish here. He and Ikaku stepped through the Senkaimon. Kushina remained silent for a moment, watching Naruko soothe the grieving Hinata. As the sun peeked over the horizon, she brushed a strand of hair from her face and thought to herself, I promise no harm will come to her again. Come on, Kushina said softly. I'm not leaving Hinata-chan, Naruko replied firmly, tightening her hold around her friend. Kushina smiled. I never meant leaving her behind. She's coming with us. Hinata blinked in surprise while Naruko gasped. I'll explain later, Kushina reassured them as she summoned her hell butterfly. A sliding door of light appeared. Naruko looked at Hinata and smiled. Come on. Hinata nodded, wiping her eyes with her sleeve, and the two stepped forward together. As they entered, Kushina silently vowed, I'll protect her as if she were my own daughter. That's a promise for life, Hikari. Hinata's wide eyes took in the breathtaking view of Soul Society. Naruko smiled, recognizing the same awe she herself had felt the first time she saw it. Their gazes met, cheeks tinged pink, and Naruko stretched out her hand toward the glowing city. This is Soul Society, she declared proudly. That wraps it up for this part. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more. Thank you for watching. Regards. 6 Path Weeb.